Austin Spare said, "Sorcery is a deliberate act of causing metamorphoses by the employment of elementals." Spare said, "Will is our medium, belief is the vehicle, and desire is the force combining with the elemental." Cryptograms, symbols or figures with secret or occult significance, are our talismans and protectors. What are elementals? They are entities that inhabit the human psyche at levels so deep that they are normally inaccessible to the conscious mind. We might think of them as amongst the most basic archetypes, connected with the reptilian brain stem, the oldest part of the brain, embodying the most primitive, bestial urges, desires, appetites and inclinations, the atavistic yearnings, with atavistic meaning, relating to or characterized by reversion to something ancient or ancestral. To access elementals is to create the scope to release the beast inside. To let them intrude into waking, conscious, civilized reality can be extremely dangerous. At a séance, two dabblers in the occult saw materialized spirits of the dead. They subsequently wanted Austin Spare to conjure an elemental with a visible appearance, given that they had never personally seen an elemental and were impressed by its awesome reputation. Kenneth Grant wrote, using his own method of elemental evocation, Spare set to work. Nothing happened for some time, then a greenish vapor, resembling fluid seaweed, gradually invaded the room. Tenuous fingers of mist began to congeal into a definite, organized shape. It entered their midst, gaining more solidity with each successive moment. The atmosphere grew miasmic with its presence and an overpowering stench accompanied it. And in the massive cloud of horror that enveloped them, two pinpoints of fire glowed like eyes, blinking in an idiot face which suddenly seemed to fill all space. As it grew in size, the couple panicked and implored Spare to drive the thing away. He banished it accordingly. It seemed to crinkle and diminish, then it fell apart like a blanket swiftly disintegrating. But while it had cohered and hung in the room like a cloud, it was virtually opaque and tangible, and it reeked of evil. Both the people concerned were fundamentally changed. Within weeks, one died of no apparent cause. The other had to be committed to an insane asylum. So the story goes. Is this all part of the mythologizing of Austin Spare? Spare claimed he could channel higher powers. He believed an occult intelligence, whose identity he was unfortunately unable to discover, painted, drew, and wrote through him. Another entity he encountered was Black Eagle, a spirit guide. The occult intelligence and Black Eagle seem somewhat similar to Jung's Philemon. Sometimes, when Spare turned his head, he claimed to glimpse all of the familiar spirits that accompanied him. Sometimes he would sketch them. In Spare's system, we can attach our desires, our intentions, to elementals, which then work on our behalf to execute our will. Spare tried to develop a graphic symbology to serve as a language to facilitate communication with the psychic and subliminal world. He believed that each individual should create his own sigils, his own language to communicate with his own psyche. Such thinking falls foul of Wittgenstein's prohibition against private languages. People's minds run the same operating system. The psyche speaks a common language, not a host of idiosyncratic, private languages. People have access to the same archetypes of the collective unconscious, and their complexes are also similar. Rather than everyone having their own sigils, everyone should in fact use exactly the same sigils, just as they use the same tarot cards rather than all inventing their own, with their own individualistic meanings. Let's meet Spare the Rainmaker. On a cloudless, sunny day, Spare was challenged to produce rain. He traced a sigil on the back of a used envelope and focused all his attention on it. 10 minutes later, small clouds massed overhead and discharged a torrent of rain, drenching Spare and his companion. Spare the Slipper Man. Spare was challenged to materialize an object that a distinguished gentleman was visualizing while giving no hints as to what it was. One option was for Spare to draw a sigil symbolizing an unknown but desired object. Spare instead drew a sigil of a spirit that had previously helped him to read minds. Spare soon received a vivid image of the item in the gentleman's mind. He drew another sigil and shortly afterwards there was a knock on the door. The gentleman's valet was at the door, holding a pair of slippers. These were of course the item the gentleman had been visualizing.